Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for inviting me to address this meeting, which commemorates the occasion of World Population Day, celebrated last Thursday, the 11th of July, with the theme of embracing the power of inclusive data towards a resilient and equitable future for all. Last week, on the occasion of World Population Day, the Population Division launched the 2024 edition of the World Population Prospects. It is the 28th edition of the United Nations Estimates and Projections of Population at the global, regional, and national levels. This latest edition is based on data from more than 1,900 national population censuses, almost 3,200 sample surveys, and information from civil registration and vital statistics systems for 169 countries. There is inherent uncertainty in population estimates, and even more so in population projections. Projection uncertainty around trends in population size is a function of the uncertainty in projected trajectories of the three components of population change, namely fertility, mortality, and international migration, which have been assessed for each country and area using methods of demographic and statistical analysis. An assessment of this uncertainty is included in our analyses in the form of prediction intervals, which represent a plausible range for future trajectories of population size and other demographic indicators. Unsurprisingly, projection uncertainty grows larger the farther we peer into the future. For the first time, the 2024 edition of the World Population Prospects includes an assessment of the uncertainty around future trends in international migration. Uncertainty related to future trends in fertility has been part of the analysis ever since 2013, and for mortality since 2015. For most countries, the additional uncertainty in population trends that is attributable to future levels of international migration is relatively small, since population change due to international migration is typically much smaller than population change related to the balance of births and deaths. For some countries, however, including the member countries of the Gulf Cooperation Council, the inclusion of uncertainty attributable to migration in the projection model leads to a substantial increase in the uncertainty of future population trends. Dear colleagues, let me now turn to some of our key findings. Over the next 50 or 60 years, the world's population is expected to continue growing, reaching a peak of around 10.3 billion people in the mid-2080s, up from 8.2 billion in 2024. After achieving its peak size, the global population is projected to begin a gradual decline, returning to around 10.2 billion people by the end of the century. According to this latest assessment, the chance that the world's population will reach its peak size within the current century is quite high, with a probability of about 80%. This is a major change compared to United Nations projections from a decade earlier, when the estimated probability that global population would reach a maximum, and thus that growth would come to an end during the 21st century, was around 30%. The earlier occurrence of a peak in the projected size of the global population is due to several factors, including lower than expected levels of fertility in recent years in some of the world's largest countries, especially China. However, the global trend hides a great diversity of situations around the world. Some countries still have high levels of fertility and are growing rapidly, while others have had historically low levels of fertility for several decades and are now experiencing a rapid aging of the population, and in some cases, decline. The current demographic landscape has important policy implications for the well-being of all the world's people and the sustainability of our planet. On the one hand, continued rapid population growth in some regions magnifies the scale of efforts required to eradicate poverty, end hunger and malnutrition, and ensure universal access to healthcare, education, and other essential services in countries that are already facing severe economic, social, and environmental challenges. Investing in the education of young people, especially girls, increasing the age at marriage and first childbearing, and ensuring access to family planning can facilitate a shift towards smaller families in populations that are growing rapidly and where individuals and couples often have more children than they desire. Such changes will also have positive repercussions for women's health, educational attainment, and labor force participation. On the other hand, population decline in some contexts may require innovative policy responses to address its potential impact on macroeconomic trends, the labor market, social protection systems, and national security. In countries where fertility is low, providing paid parental leave, flexible working arrangements, affordable childcare, and care for older persons, along with promoting equal responsibility for men and women within households, can boost female labor force participation, support families, encourage childbearing, and enhance economic security for all. Those are just two examples of how the foresight provided by population projections can inform development planning and decision-making. Ladies and gentlemen, the 2024 edition of the World Population Prospects provides more detailed and in-depth data than ever before. In addition, there is greater transparency concerning the methods applied and improved access to and documentation of the empirical data used to generate and update the dataset. In closing, I wish to acknowledge the important role that GCC Stat has played in facilitating data and information sharing between national authorities and the Population Division. The efforts of colleagues at GCC Stat and in the national statistical offices of the region have contributed to substantial improvements in the way that the unique population dynamics of these countries are reflected in the World Population Prospects. I thank you for your continuing collaboration, and I wish you a productive meeting.